Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friend Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, who is digitally recording this in high definition for broadcast on their website or on your favorite public access cable channel. And the reason why they're here, it's time for our monthly visit with Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert, and he's brought along a special guest, and we'll let him introduce that and the program as well. With that, we welcome Sheriff Reichert. Good morning, sir.
Thanks so much, Carl. It's wonderful to be here again. Cold, brisk February morning.
Yeah, with enough slippery road to cause some problems. A little bit of snow, a little nuisance snow.
Got to remember what you're doing.
That's it. And put on your headlights so we can see each other and slow down a little.
We've got an extraordinarily special guest today.
Okay.
One of my best friends in the world, a buddy, certainly a friend of the show, Assistant Chief Lonn Radtke from the Port Edwards Police Department. And I'm sure, you know, usually wherever Lonn is, there's great conversation. He's got great stories to tell all the time. He hasn't told me anything that he's planning on saying at the show today.
Okay, but as long as it falls within FCC guidelines, we're okay.
I think it will. You know, I heard him talking to Pam before the show, and he seemed to be kind of under control today, so all is well.
Thanks, Sheriff, for that introduction. That was very kind.
Okay. Before we get into our discussion with Lonn and the like, I just wanted to. Last month you made the announcement that you're going to be retiring.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
Well, no, it's going to be a long time. It's not going to be till the beginning of January.
I know, but you're going. But I mean, you're going to serve out your term, and then
I'm not going to seek re-election.
You're not going to seek re-election. With that, I wanted to ask you. Now that you've had a time to reflect, what are some of your goals as you get ready to fill out your term? Are there things that you want to accomplish and say, I got that done, clean slate, good luck to the next sheriff?
You know, we've done so many of the things that I've wanted to this point. And I'm sure there's going to be some incidental things that are going to come up during the course of this year that I'm going to want to dispose of during my time or take care of. For instance, we just had a bit of an expansion at the Sheriff's Department. Several years ago, there was a study done, a space needs study within the courthouse, and the results of that basically were that we needed to add a little bit of space to our department, and we're working on finishing that right now. Our crew at the courthouse, our work crew at the courthouse from Ruben's bunch have done a great job. They've done a really, really good job on remodeling certain areas, and we're moving some offices. We're trying to make better use of the space that we have inside the courthouse proper. And I think, that's coming together really good. So I think there's probably going to be a lot of things like that are going to come up. You know, we'll tweak things with the squad cars. You know, basically the program that I had put in place and that we've had for all these years now has been one where you put something in place and then you evaluate it as to how well it's doing and you tweak it to make it better. Very, very similar, and this is a really bad comparison, but it's very similar, like in nature, to what FDR did in the New Deal. You know, he said, we're crazy if we don't try something. You know, the only bad idea is the one that you don't try. And so we've kind of adopted that, and we've done these things. We've had success with a vast majority of things that we've done. Things that we haven't, we've tweaked and tried to make better. You know, certainly as our jail is always going to be something that is going to have not just periodic but constant attention, because we have such a space crisis with our jail that we're always going to be having to do something. You know, recently we just opened up and made it so that we would have more people on electronic monitoring to free up jail space for people that needed to be actually in jail. So, there's always going to be those type of things that are going to come up, and I would anticipate the year we will have that. But in terms of big projects, big things that I want to do, we've reinvented the sheriff's department in the last 13 years, and I don't know that I think the lion's share of that work is over.
Okay, that's what I wanted to get to. Okay, now the reason why you invited Lonn, besides being a good buddy,
is one of my best friends in the world. I think he is an extraordinary officer. I think he does a super job down in Port Edwards. And he's a good interview.
Okay.
He's always a good interview.
Well, since Lonn is here, what are some of the new things that that you and your compatriots in the Port Edwards Police Department are trying to accomplish right now?
Well, we've done quite a bit. We have some exciting news. The law enforcement club at the high school is now in its 4th year. We have over 30 members, kids that are involved. We're doing some fundraisers for what we're going to do is buy some playground equipment for the parks. We've already got 2 that we're going to purchase, and hopefully another piece of equipment so people can go and enjoy the parks this summer and use some of the playground equipment and have a picnic. We're teaching them, we've been out on the highways during the spring, cleaning up the spring. We've had some, again, working with the sheriff, we've been able to go to the jail and tour the jail, teach kids about law enforcement, kind of a little bit about our jobs and how it relates to the community.
What grade are the students in this club?
They're all from freshmen on up. So
okay, so are these generally students that have an interest in pursuing a law enforcement career?
Well, with our club, basically we don't single out just people that are interested in a career. It's anybody that's really interested in community-minded events, helping the community. With the seniors, it's just great. One of the girls came up to me a couple weeks ago, and she said, Officer Radtke, I'm going on to college, and she's frightened. It's a new adventure, and she's going to be going to Madison. And she said, can we have like a self-defense class of what would happen if I'm walking the streets and somebody would come up and how I can defend myself or what I should do? And I said, sure. And we have got something in the plans for the spring where I'm going to have a defense officer tactic officer come in and put on a little program for the kids that are interested in that. And, that's from coming from a small village, going to college, there's things that they have to be aware of.
Okay, and that's true. And maybe we need to do that with all young people, that as you become an adult, we're going to teach them now financial literacy and everything else, but maybe some safety. This is how to keep yourself safe in the world.
Exactly.
My wife Missy is involved with the Noon Rotary Club, and they're very active, with young people coming to that club.
Right.
And she's always amazed at the people that are in Lonn's law enforcement club. They come and they talk about it, and they're always very excited about it. They're always, looking forward to some of the things that we're doing. For 20 years now, we've been going to the Juvenile Officers Association. For 20, Lonn and I both were, and Lonn remains, but I was a juvenile officer for 16 years at the Sheriff's Department, so we both shared an interest in juvenile justice and juvenile laws, and we've always gone to a fall training with the Wisconsin Juvenile Officers Association, which is a statewide organization that puts on this training every year. And a lot of the things that I see that Lonn's doing now is stuff that we've learned at that training, and it's working out great for him.
Lonn, has this club and the interaction that you have with the students, has that improved relations between students and law enforcement in Port Edwards?
Oh, definitely. Some of the kids, of course, have gotten into trouble, even though they're in the club, but I know that an incident where a kid had gotten stopped by a law enforcement officer, and he came in and he said, I was in the wrong, but what can I do and how does this work? And a lot of people think that, we're just out there giving tickets and that's arresting somebody. That's just a traffic stop. And I don't think they understand the whole idea of what law enforcement is. I mean, we're there not just to throw fines on people. We're there to correct their actions so it doesn't keep occurring and make the road safe for people. I think Sheriff Reichert, he's come a long way with the jail and some of his programs that he's implemented. It's not that we want to keep on seeing the people keep on repeating their crimes or repeat offenders, and by educating people of what they can do and the resources that are out there, hopefully we can deteriorate them coming back.
Okay. And then, of course, in a village the size of Port Edwards, you have an interesting, a different circumstance than, say, what the city of Wisconsin Rapids police chief has to deal with. How is law enforcement different in your type of setting, and how do you try to interact with the public in a proactive way?
Well, there's a lot of different hats that we wear in being a law enforcement officer in a small community. We have to run traffic. We have to be a school officer. We have to be a training officer. It's not like a bigger department where you might just have a certain person be to investigate things, or one person that is just the juvenile officer. There's just so many different hats, so you have to work with everybody in the community, and it really shows how you can work strong with all entities of the community, being the superintendents, the principals of the school, to the manager of ERCO worldwide, to the people at DMI, to just the general public. There's, like I said, you have to work with all entities of the community. Where I think in a larger department, you can always just say, well, this person investigates juvenile matters,
right,
and that's it. So that's one of the strong things, is working with so many different people. I also, again, commend Sheriff Reichert, because usually with our small community, sometimes our resources are limited, and we count on other agencies such as Nakusa, Rapids PD, Grand Rapids, of course the Sheriff's Department. If we have a major investigation or we're running shorthanded, they've always been there to help.
That's something we've talked about forever on this program, is that there's no boundaries in law enforcement. And I know you've met with the new Chief Blevins at the Rapids PD, the new police chief here, and he shares that philosophy for a T. I mean, when you're dealing with a micropolitan area like this, where you got a mixture of urban and rural, you got to cooperate.
That's absolutely true. Port Edwards is a really neat place. Recently, I had gone to church in Pittsville, and Father Bob Nelson retired, so I had to find a new church.
Okay.
And I went.
So that's why your pastor retires, and you decide.
I had to. I was going to switch. I was going to switch churches, and so I started going to St. Alexander's in Port. Oh. And I miss Father Bob terribly. For all of those out there that are listening that know him, they know what a wonderful guy he is, and what an asset he is for our community. And I just miss hearing him on every Sunday tremendously. But I've gone. Missy and I started going to St. Alexander's, and Father Swing is the priest there, and he too is a wonderful man, wonderful pastor, wonderful priest. And we're enjoying going there a lot. But what that's done is it's further exposed Port Edwards to me. I've always thought of Port Edwards in a real idyllic sense, that you have all these really nice houses, and everybody family life is very strong there, and going to church there now has really kind of reaffirmed that. And a big part of that idyllic life that you see there is because of the Port Edwards PD and because of Lonn Radtke. And you have such interaction with the people. Everybody knows them there. It's like law enforcement, like a perfect situation for law enforcement. There's personalized service. They know, like, everybody that's in the village, or a vast majority of them, and they're all on a first name basis. It's just something that is just so neat to watch, like from a police standpoint that you almost wish that it was that situation for everyone in the world.
Given that, Lonn, what are some of the problems, law enforcement problems? For instance, we hear a lot about drugs, opioids and drugs. Do you have problems like that in Port Edward?
Well, I think that we'd be, closing our eyes if we said that we didn't. We've changed a little bit. We lost the mill, and it was a big.
I was going to ask you about that.
It was a big
Thank
struggle.
you for bringing that up.
And but right now things are actually turning around to the positive. We've got a lot. The warehouse was sold to a company. I'm not sure exactly what the name of the company. I believe that they're storing hydrated milk in the warehouse, so that's a positive that part of the old mill was sold, so they're utilizing it. I've heard that there's interest in a couple of the computer building and some other of the outbuildings. The tracks are being utilized by Domtar and Urco, so those are actually the switch yards being utilized. It's just the building itself where it's kind of half torn down right now, and I think that that's maybe a DNR issue with maybe the price of scrap metal right now. But I know that they're working on things behind the scenes to get that cleaned up. Over on the other side of the river, Nepco Lake, which is the village of Port Edwards, there's been a lot of building, a lot of houses going up around the lake, and that again generates tax revenue for the village of Port Edwards. So we're growing in that way. We're growing more residential but we are having some businesses come in.
You just brought up something, and from a logistics standpoint, but a lot of people think of Port Edwards, and it's the village that you drive through. Mm-hmm. But that area, where all the new housing development, those new beautiful homes, like Lake Nepco, people forget that's the village.
Correct.
So first off, how big is the Port Edwards Police Department?
Right now we have 3 full-time officers and 3 part-time officers.
So what kind of logistical problems, what I just described, does that pose for your department?
Well, it kind of it poses the problem of not being able to cover all the area with the small number of officers, and we really count on, again, Grand Rapids, Wood County Sheriff's Department. We work so hand in hand, and Nakusa Police Department, we assist them, they assist us. So again, with that, if we didn't have them entities to work with, it would be pretty tough. Some of the challenges for us is that, with some of the houses being older, and they're turning into rentals. We have people coming and going. We do have some drug issues that we've been working on, again, with the Sheriff's Department. And when we realize we have the issue, we address it and take care of it.
Do you find it in a smaller setting like a village that you have more people among the citizenry being willing to be the eyes and report things to you?
Oh, definitely. I guess one of the things is there's a lot of activity at one of the rental houses, and without the neighbors' assistance on it, we would never be able to keep track of everything that comes and goes. So, the community is very, very knitted together. It's a strong community. Like Sheriff Reichert talked about the churches, we have a fun fest in the summer, and all the churches get together. The Methodists, the Lutherans, the Catholics, CLF. It's not, you put all of that aside and you come together as a community. And that's one of the nice things about Port Edwards.
One thing that we'd really be remiss in not mentioning, Carl, about Port Edwards, Lonn ticked off really well, like some of the really positive economic things and positive social things that they have going. There's good government there again. There's sensible government there again, with Joe Zerflu Sr. being the president of the village board, and common sense is kind of back in vogue. And I think all the people that are I think that the people that are on the village board now, I think are making good decisions. And in addition to all the other exciting things that they have going, I think that as a basis of all that, you've got someone like Chief Joe Sr. that's leading the village now and doing a great job providing that leadership and making some of those things happen.
And like I said, this is a radio listening session, and our phone lines are open at 715-424-2600. Put those headsets on, gentlemen, and we'll get our first caller of the morning on the air. Good morning. You're on the Morning Magazine.
Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you again for a wonderful show. And yes, Officer Radtke helped out our family several years ago with a little confrontation that we had over in the Port Edwards area, and it was very positive, so thank you. Two questions. I'm wondering if Wood County is considering doing similar to what Portage County did, or if they still have this in place. I don't think they do, and I will listen off the air, but regarding the bringing in the packages to the people housed in the facility at the jail. They're not going to allow it. They will accept only things coming, I do believe, directly from the publisher or like through Amazon. And my second question is, I was encouraged to see that we had our officers taking the polar plunge, but I'm wondering, why did they do it in uniform? And could we maybe have warmer T-shirts or hoodies or something next year? And it's kind of a minutia thing, but I thought, man, these things I know are expensive to put on the backs of these guys, as well as they need to be cleaned and appropriately taken care of. So I'll listen off the air, and thanks again for your wonderful job, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's talk about. I was going to ask you about the plunge. I saw the picture.
Sure. Great event. Yeah,
I saw Captain Becker was being interviewed on TV about it, and his daughter was talking.
Then he broke TVs all across central Wisconsin. But they had a wonderful event, and they raised over $10,000. It's my understanding.
Wow.
So hats off to them. His daughter is doing. His daughter Jordan is doing a great job with Special Olympics, and really has that running on all 8 cylinders. In terms of they wear their uniforms because it's really a thematic idea. You know, everybody that jumps has a theme. You know, like you might have like the United Bakers, and people would dress up like bakers, and they would all jump.
I know, like Miss Wisconsin Rapids area, she jumped the day before, and we had her on that morning, James and I, on the Good Morning Show, and she was wearing an old evening gown. But,
so, you know, they jump basically as a team, and I guess, caller, I would look at them wearing a uniform as sort of the uniform of their team. In terms of the uniform themselves, they're not wearing their Class 1 uniforms. They're wearing older ones that have been cycled through, probably have quite a bit of wear on them already. Okay. And that's
they're
how
not
we
their
do
current
it.
wear.
They're not their current ones or their Class A uniforms. So we get around we get around the cleaning aspect in that by kind of using older stuff, and it works out pretty good. And I know that creates the idea of them all wearing the uniform. It creates a sense of camaraderie, I think, between them too, because
visually it looks impressive.
I think it looks kind of neat.
Yeah.
You know, a long time ago, my cardiologist squashed any idea that I was ever going to jump in freezing cold water.
Same here. I would never.
So you know, it's not going to be happening for me. But I think it's a cool thing that they do it, and that they do it as a team.
What about the question about packages at the jail?
Surprising question, because I don't know that I've ever been asked that before. I know we have relatively strict guidelines in terms of what we allow into the jail, and what we do to determine that is the safety of the jail and the security of the jail. So I don't anticipate that we're going to be allowing other things into the jail that aren't prepackaged or meet the criteria that we have. Now, I'm sure like in 90% or 95% of the cases that we would allow home packaged products or home packaged items into the jail, they would be fine. But you would not believe the ingenuity and the cleverness of people when it's time to like sneak something into the jail, like the old baking a saw into a cake.
So do you inspect stuff?
We do. We inspect stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we are always going to find what is hidden. People that are put into those situations, their ingenuity and their creativity is boundless, and we just try. We have rules in place that make our jail as secure and as safe as possible, and that has to be the bottom line of a jail. It has to be secure and safe, and to enact policies or procedures that would compromise that, I think, is really irresponsible on our part.
Okay, so you basically feel you have a process in place that keeps contraband under control?
Boy, we try our best, but we still have situations where things that are against our rules are somehow smuggled in. Example, chewing tobacco. We had a situation some time ago where chewing tobacco somehow made it into the jail. We have other situations, and the items I can't think of, right? I know there's been medications that have been snuck in and so on. So, we're not airtight the way it is, and I would hate to compromise that or lessen that more and allow more things in than what already make their way in through ingenuity.
Okay. With that, we have to take our first break. You're listening to The Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our friends from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Back with more with the sheriff and a special guest right after this.
Good morning and welcome back to The Morning Magazine, presented by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. It's time for part 2. Once again, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and welcome back, everybody, to today's show on AM 1320 and WFHR.com, as well as on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. And that's our monthly visit with Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert. Lonn Radtke, Assistant Chief, is that right?
Yes, correct.
Assistant Chief at the Port Edwards Police Department is here as well. And the sheriff, as he has with his past visits, has given me a couple of these beautiful coins. They're service coins honoring your
coins. Yes.
Honoring
that marked my tenure as sheriff here in Wood County.
So these are collectibles, and the next two callers with a question or comment for our guests will get one of these coins.
Wonderful.
And that's and it's 715-424-2600, and that will get you on the air. With this we've talked, and this is a subject we've talked about forever. We got a caller, so I want to give this caller a chance to get on the air and talk to you, gentlemen. Good morning. You're on The Morning Magazine.
Yeah, good morning, Carl, and Sheriff Reichert. And Carl, you know who this is. And Tom, I would like to thank you for your years of service. You did a wonderful job, and if there's anything we can do to convince you to stay, let us know, because we sure did enjoy it.
Well, thanks so much. Believe me, it's been that's a two-sided thing. I've so enjoyed this, and my decision to not seek re-election did not happen quickly or come lightly, because it's really hard to walk away from something that you really love, like I love Wood County, and I love being sheriff of Wood County, and. But I think it's time to move on and try some other things. Off air, we were just talking about Barry Alvarez.
All right.
And it would be great to walk into a gig like when he left coaching into athletic director, but I don't know any athletic directors at the county.
Okay.
But thank you so much for your kind comments, and I'm honored that you would accept one of my coins.
Yeah.
Well, I would love it.
Okay, well, we'll have it here at the. Well, what name should I put on it?
Chris.
Okay. So
I'm your favorite ham radio.
I know. But
and Tom, when you came out for a field day out here on Hollywood Road, we we felt so proud with your presence here.
Oh.
It was just phenomenal.
It was. I was honored to be there, and I'm so glad that things are going better out in your neck of the woods too.
They are. Everything is quiet, and
No more loud explosions?
well, not really. No.
Okay, good.
And, so it's. I don't know. Maybe the weather's too cold for him to be out there shooting this stuff off.
Okay.
But maybe he's seen what it does to a car when you load it up with it and shoot it. And, but anyway, it's been quiet out here on all aspects.
Glad to hear it. Maybe see you at lunch by the river this year, Chris. Huh?
Well, and I guess maybe I won't have to be so creative at all anymore to stop some of this stuff out here.
No, you don't have to be creative. Just give us a call.
Okay.
I certainly will. Okay, Tom, well, thank you so much. I sure do appreciate, and everybody and my husband and I, we all appreciated you immensely, and we're really going to miss you, but I'm sure you have a able and a likable replacement for yourself. You take care, you and your wife, and have a wonderful retirement.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chris, we'll have this at the station for you. You just stop by and pick it up.
Oh, okay. I shall do that. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
All right, yep, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And with that, here's our next winner of this coin. Who is this?
This is Doug.
Hey,
I got
Doug.
a question for Lonn.
Okay, Doug, go right ahead.
Doug?
Do you have any interest in running for Wood County Sheriff, Lonn?
I've actually considered it. I haven't really made up my mind.
I see.
So I have considered it. It's a thought. I think I would have big shoes to fill with Sheriff Reichert. I think he's done a great job there at the Wood County Sheriff's Department. And I'm going to make up my mind by the end of this month for sure.
Okay.
But the thought has been there.
Yeah. Well, I see what you do all in Port Edwards. I'm down here in the Coos. I think you know who I am. But I think you do a great job, at Port Edwards. And I think you would make a good Wood County Sheriff.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, that was my comment.
Okay. Well, Doug, you can stop by the station and pick up the service coin.
Thank you very much.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thanks a lot for calling.
Bye.
Okay, we got rid of the coins. Thank you again, Sheriff, for providing those.
You're so welcome.
But talking about relationships between law enforcement, and we now have this dialogue going, I think it's good to let people know. They read headlines in the paper. Oh, we got this problem and this problem and this problem, and they're wondering what's happening. The fact is, you're working on these things all the time. In fact, I'm going to have, let me just make sure that I don't misspeak, on Friday's program on here for the Wood County Health Department segment, I'm going to have a predecessor of yours, Kurt Hoyer, and he's the law enforcement liaison for the Marshfield Clinic Health System Center for Community Outreach. We're going to be talking about the Wood County Drug Task Force.
Oh, nice.
And we're also going to have Ashley Normington from the Wood County Health Department. We're going to be talking about how this is going on. And I think the general public sometimes doesn't realize you're not ignoring these problems are being worked on every day.
Every day. And as a matter of fact, right now as we speak, the quarterly meeting of the local law enforcement executives is meeting at the Rapids PD. Okay. So all the chiefs and representatives from our department are at that meeting talking about these very things. What's going on in their communities, what's happening, what's going on with certain people in terms of drug cases and so on. So it is, and it's a lot of times I think there's a perception that if every organization, if you visualize every organization being a circle, okay, sometimes I think people believe that these circles never touch, but in reality, you have like Kurt's component and drug task force and business community and the service groups and law enforcement. All these, there's a piece of all these circles that kind of connects and works on these problems and gives their information and talks about what they would view as solutions to be and what the problems are. That's happening all the time. These problems aren't solved autonomously by one organization or one person or one idea, but rather a commingling of them and coming up with an idea.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I was just recently a judge for the Colorado Broadcasters Association Awards.
That's pretty
big.
neat.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've won awards, and it was asked to do it, and I said, sure, I'll be. But one of the entries I judged was an interview program like this in Colorado Springs, and they were talking about the opioid problem. And they were talking to a doctor, and he has mapped out what he calls the highway of death, or where opioid deaths have happened. And he made a statement that really struck me, and it shows that this problem is everywhere. And he said something, and this was the quote: "We're not going to arrest our way out of this problem."
Never.
No.
Absolutely true.
No, you'll just fill up jails, and it won't take care of the problem. And the issues will still stay in jails or prisons. You have to look at a different solution. I think, like Sheriff Reichert said, there's so many entities that are working together that people don't see. Kyle Cronin, the superintendent of the school, invited me last year to a Rotary meeting, and there was a doctor there talking about just the problem with drugs in central Wisconsin area. And so you have anywhere from the entities of the Rotary Club to probation and parole that meet on a regular basis with law enforcement, to the law enforcement executives, to the drug task force teams, to just all sorts of groups that are all working together on the same issues.
I guess then, for the folks that get frustrated, what would you tell them? You know, you got to put, if you're passionate about this and you want to, what would you tell? My advice would be, get involved with one of these groups, or better yet, if you see something, report it. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't go calling, well, you know, there's this drug house over on whatever, and nobody's doing anything about it. Well, did you bother to call law enforcement to let them know about it?
Right. And that a lot of times that's the case. Last week I had an individual from Pittsville call me up and talk to me about a house, a rental house that he owns, that he suspected that type of activity is going on, and we've started an investigation into that house and develop sources and leads, and we'll see how it turns out. What I would probably tell those persons, though, is this isn't our first rodeo. You know, we've had law enforcement in general, and I at this point I'll volunteer that on last Friday was my 36th anniversary as a law enforcement officer.
Congratulations! Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And you know, we've had this before. You know, we had this in the 90s, in the late 80s with the cocaine epidemic. And I've said this before, and some people disagree with me, and I understand if they want to. But you know, we've had a very similar situation to our opioid epidemic with cocaine in the 80s and 90s. Tremendous use. The only real difference between the two is opioids are more prone to kill you than what cocaine is. But we had a tremendous number of people arrested. We had widespread use throughout our society. I think now, versus the late 80s and early 90s, I think we're more aware of what's going on, and I think we're more aware in terms of society that it's going on. I think back then, I think it was kind of something that people didn't really pay as close of attention to. But we had this situation before, and it's a cyclical process. You know, eventually, and you know, we're seeing at least some evidence of that already, is that we've maybe peaked already, and maybe we're on our way back down again, which I certainly hope is the case. We want to do whatever we can, and I think the efforts that are going on that we're talking about hasten that decline, hasten that going down. You know, we've done studies within our jail, and we found that primarily our jail, while it's fuller now than what it was before, there's basically the same number of people from the big pool of people that go into the jail. That number has remained consistent, which tells me that we don't have like a whole lot of more people entering into jail-eligible behavior. The study that we did showed that there's about 4,000 people in Wood County that are that regularly or occasionally come into the Wood County Jail. That 4,000 number has remained constant through this entire epidemic of sorts. So we haven't had a tremendous number of people. Now, to explain the more number of people in jail and why our jail is fuller, these people are getting, the 4,000 people are getting longer sentences, and their length of time when they're outside of the jail, the confines of the jail, is getting shorter. They're reoffending quicker. So basically, we're getting about the same number of people. They're just, we call it a blender effect. You know, they're just going into the blender and they're just spinning around really, really fast, and then they're back in jail again. And, you know, where these programs and where these things need to target is not law enforcement and not, you know, what we're going to do to like punish them. It's more of a health issue. It's more of it's what are we going to do to promote people to be and make people be more healthy.
Or get them into treatment.
Exactly. I think it's the big thing is that they're so addicted to the drug that they get out of jail and they need it again. I kind of look at the drug uses as kind of like technology. You know, it used to be just marijuana, and then it opens up to cocaine, heroin, meth. So it kind of like what will be the next drug of the next century? And it kind of on that same, what's the next technology for phones? And these people are using different things to get their addictions.
Yeah. That's true. You know, you've had like different.
I was going to ask you how social media and the like has changed this from the 80s and 90s.
I think that's part of the reason why we're more aware of the opioid epidemic than what we were of the cocaine epidemic. I think it's because of those, and it isn't. It probably is. People just have a better understanding. But Lonn makes a wonderful point. You know, you have different types of drugs that have dominated different periods of time in the last 30 or 40 years. The one consistent to those is probably marijuana. You know, you've had marijuana use from long ago, pre-60s. You know, and but what's really fascinating about the times we live in is the experiments that are going on, and I call them social experiments, that are going on in places like Las Vegas and Washington and Colorado, as to what the effect of legalization of those are going to be. I don't think that that's going to be something that's going to go away in the near future, and I don't know how quick Wisconsin will be to add on to that. I would anticipate we would be rather slow in adding on to that, just based on how we react to things, to social things in our state. But you know, boy, in the next 20 years, I can't imagine that there aren't going to be a number of more states that are going to legalize marijuana.
I want to talk about. I take a last break, but I want to talk about entrepreneurship.
Oh,
and jail entrepreneurs? We'll be talking more about that when the Morning Magazine continues right after this. Welcome back to the Morning Magazine and our discussion with Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert and Assistant Port Edwards Police Chief Lonn Radtke. I teased this going into the break. Everybody, we got the release. I got a release from Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, the Chamber of Commerce, everybody about this program to teach entrepreneurship to jail inmates in Wood County.
This is a neat concept. It was something that I really, obviously, this comes from discussions that I had with my wife, Missy, who's the president of our local chamber. And you know, the idea sprang from the idea this has never been done before. You know, why not give this a try? It's a proactive idea. You know, what's going to happen is there's going to be what economic boot camps are going to take place in our jail for prisoners that show the initiative to be a part of that. And what the chamber is going to do is they're going to come in and they're going to teach classes on basically how to start a business. And you know, I view it as very, very similarly to what I viewed other inside jail or internal jail programs that we've done during my tenure is to try to give the people that are in jail the tools to succeed while they're on the outside. And I think this is a great continuation of that. The program that's going to be put in place is they're going to be given the opportunity to attend classes where they're going to learn, really the nuts and bolts of how they're going to start a business, what is needed to take place, in terms of economic input, in terms of their own, their own investment, in terms of sweat equity into that business, how to become an LLC, and all of those type of legal aspects that go into starting a business. I am hoping that perhaps even maybe, and this maybe goes to one of your earlier questions, I'm, as to what I would like to do before I retire next January. One thing is maybe I might start a jail or a business within the jail, using some of our inmates that are in this program. I don't have any specific plans for that yet at this point, but I'm waiting to see how the boot camp type operation goes, and they're going to start that probably a little bit later this spring.
Okay. Have you had some interest from some inmates to say, I would, and what could be the requirements to get into this program?
I think the requirements are going to be that you're interested in bettering yourself. And,
Okay.
I think that's the main requirement from where I'm sitting.
And you don't want to go. This is another attempt to get at recidivism.
Exactly. It's simply a chance it's simply an opportunity or a chance that we're willing to invest in to make our little corner of the world in central Wisconsin better by providing the skills and the abilities to people that are currently incarcerated with the opportunity to do something when they're outside of jail. And the boot camp system that Missy has in place at the chamber has been very, very successful. There are so many businesses throughout central Wisconsin that have attended that boot camp and have learned from it and have prospered from it. I think this is something that could be very good. The idea that it's never been done before in our state also really appealed to me.
Well, that's obviously why the state was very interested in it.
They were like really. I never spoke with any of them. Missy primarily did, but they were actually pretty pumped up about.
Well, yeah, they contacted my office. Yeah,
conceptually what we were doing. So
you're from local law enforcement. Your thoughts on this kind of?
I think it's a great idea to give it a try and see if we can make a successful program, especially with the repeat offenders that come in and out of the jail. It gives them something to look forward to when they get out. Gives them the tools and the opportunity to become their own business. We have to look at some of the offenders that are in the jail and what their offenses are. Some of them, people have just made mistakes. I know that last year the storm came through and I had a tree service come and take care of a couple of my trees, and I recognized a couple of the guys as maybe people that were at one time incarcerated for minor offenses. And to give them the tools to maybe get out and start their own businesses, trimming trees or landscaping or whatever it be, I think it's a great opportunity to let them know how to do that and become an LLC.
Right. Just things that just spring to mind immediately. Like I know there's guys in the jail that would be good handymen. They could start a business with handyman, car detailing, like Lonn said, landscaping.
Of course, and then the
tree trimming,
and then the growth of this will depend on how the public perceives.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, am I going to trust this guy?
Right, and some of the offenses that people are incarcerated for are things that hopefully are a one-time thing and they learn from it, and it could be anything from operating while under the influence to situations that happened that happen to anyone.
Okay. Guys, we had a very interesting conversation this week today. Thank you, Lonn, for
went
being
fast.
Yes, it did.
Wow. Thanks, Carl. It's
Yeah.
good
Yeah,
seeing
Carl,
you.
always a pleasure being here.
Okay, we'll do it again next month, and we'll continue until your final day.
You know, depending on how the schedule falls, I might be here on my last day.
Okay, that would be fine. We'll have a party.
Yes.
Guys, have a good week, and we'll talk again.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Carl.
much.
Okay, and with that, we'll wrap up the Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and WFHR.com. We also thank Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for being here as well on the Morning Magazine.